for joining today's SLOconf monthly meetup. Really excited to welcome all of you. We have so many new faces, which I'm super excited about. And I am extremely excited about the two amazing speakers we have today. We have Ioannis Georgoulas from Paddle, and then we have Yury Nino Roa from Google. And my name is Erza. I work for a company called Noble9, and I have been helping run this meetup for over almost 2 years now. It's been quite some time. I am really lucky to be joined by some amazing organizers. One of them is Zach Nickens. He's on this call today. And we have Dylan Zir from Google. Sorry, before I introduce the first speaker, I just wanted to introduce a new program that we just started. It's called SLOconf Global, which means that now all of them can send us an application to run your own SLOconf monthly meetup in your city. So if you're interested to do that, please use the link. I sent it on the chat. Use the link below to either submit a request for yourself or someone else. It's a great chance for you to keep growing this community, and we will help out with all the planning and all the resources that are needed to make that happen. So please go ahead and do that if you're interested. I also want to give a huge shout out to the current SLOconf Global captains. We have Ehi from Africa, and then we have Barha from India. Abby is in UK, and Kostya in Poland. Abby's on this call. Hello, Abby. And really excited. We just started this last month. I'm going to share a link where you can read more about our captains and what the role is, how they're going to help out during SLOconf. And SLOconf. So really, really excited to welcome all of you to SLOconf, happening May 9th till 12th. SLOconf, for the new faces here, SLOconf is a conference that we ran last year. It was the first conference ever for service level objectives. It's totally free to attend, and it has a very nice format where you can attend while you're working. It all is online and run via Slack. So please make sure to register for it to keep updated with the news. We have some great speakers on the lineup that we're getting a lot of CFPs, which I'm super excited to share with all of you shortly. And it's going to be an awesome event. So please make sure to sign up at sloconf.com and see you at the event, hopefully. Really, really excited to introduce you to the next speaker, to the first speaker, Ioannis Georgoulas. Ioannis is an S3 engineering manager at Paddle, and he actually happened to be a great speaker last year at the SLOconf conference that I was talking about earlier. Ioannis will be talking about SRE and empathy today. Again, super excited to have Ioannis here. Thank you so much for doing this. Whenever you're ready, take over.
Thanks for the introduction. Yeah, I'm Ioannis, and today I'm going to speak about SRE and empathy. But before I jump on this, first, SLOconf, I'm going to say, it's a great opportunity for everyone to talk about SLOs, and it's very good environment for people that never speak in the past in a conference. It was my first conference I spoke last year. It's kind of stressful, but still, it's like your own pace, but it's a really good opportunity to go out there and just, go for it. So yeah, follow the links that there's shared and go and register to come and join. And a little bit about me. Yeah, I'm Ioannis, as I said again, it's range manager at Paddle. I'm based in London. It's dark here, depends where in the world now. And yeah, what we do at Paddle, we offer in payment infrastructure. Pretty much you want to sell your software, we are there to provide all your fraud detection, all your tax compliance, all these nice and not very sexy things, but it's more about selling your software in a good way. And I want to call myself a SLO practitioner and evangelist. I don't know if I am, but I want to be, at least, go from there. Okay, back to the talk for today. So first of all, I will start with some quotes. So this is from Dr. Cassandra Brown, which is an American research professor and lecturer. She's known in particular for research about SAME, vulnerability, and leadership. And she said the following, empathy fuels connection, sympathy drives disconnection. If you read just that, you think that sympathy is always a bad thing. But obviously, this is not like black and white. There are more things on that. So I will start with some definitions first. What is sympathy? Sympathy is sharing the feelings of another. It involves you understanding things not just from their perspective, but your own perspective. And also sympathy is usually coming from a good place. That's why I mentioned the previous slide. It's not always like a bad thing. Usually it's a good thing that comes from a different angle. And about empathy. Empathy is perspective talking, or putting yourself in someone else's shoes. So it's more about recognizing emotions for another person that probably you have experienced at some time in the past, and you actually relate with them. And also it's about staying out of judgment, actually live listening what they want to say. And how this relates to SRE. So this comes from an article written by Moz Zadka, an engineer at Red Hat, where he says about SREs that focus on sympathy usually involve others in the decision process to solve their problems, or they release solutions to focus groups to see how they fail and learn from that. On the other hand, SREs that focus on empathy, like imagine themselves in the other person's position, and they try to build internal tools and processes where like they're the users. So they use them themselves first, and then they go back to their clients or users or whatever is a user of the internal tool. So this is these two kind of different mindsets you can have as SRE. And here I wrote an article recently about how I'm building the SRE team at Paddle, and how important it is to have always a human element in the role. Obviously, you can hire SREs that focus on sympathy or teach them, but you can actually teach someone to be empathetic. This is either they have it or not. And obviously, this is very hard to understand during a hiring process, but it's not necessarily said a bad thing, whatever is, if you follow sympathy or empathy, it's more about the mindset. And then specifically like for incidents and something that as SRE probably you deal with it all the time. Let's say that something bad happens to your platform and you have to trigger your incident management process. And in this process, there are lots of areas you can actually improve if you focus on empathy. First of all, is status page. Something happens, you update your status page. If you think similar cases where one of your third-party providers were down and you had issues, you expect for them to acknowledge and update the status page as soon as possible so you know what's happening. So if you think like this, then you should have the same expectations for yourself. You should do the same with your updates of your status page. Other can be your support team, like depends on the background, you may be or not work in this kind of role, but you always been in the other end where you're complaining or asking your support team about the product you bought and something is not working, right? So if you be in this agent's position, they require regular updates in a plain language that can communicate back to the user so they can actually, reassure them that everything will be resolved. The next one is engineers in the incident. Engineers usually fix things during an incident, and it can be very stressful when you do that during an incident. As SRE, you should be the one that makes sure a process and a health environment exists where the team can debug and mitigate without different kind of problems. And as SRE, probably you have done this many times, so it's very easy to be empathetic and know how to protect your team and make sure they have the best environment to continue to resolve the incident. And the last one is postmortems. Postmortems, you're not under pressure this time, but at this time you have to listen, not just your team, but also your support team, your platform in general, to try to understand what's happening. Listening and acknowledging the pain points is crucial, and if you use empathy, probably make these problems like it's your problems. So you probably focus more and better on the solutions. And the next one is on call. On call is very much easy to be empathetic. Most of the series know how it works, but maybe your management or whoever is managing the on-call process doesn't know. Some examples that can happen, let's say for on-call, you wake up 3 in the morning, there's a false positive alert. Okay, it happens, sit down, go to sleep again. It can happen also alerts that keep coming up all the time and nobody's actioning to improve anything. It can be engineers being there not very often, or you don't have any run books or escalation policies in place. All of this can happen, or one of them can happen. And if your management team or whoever is responsible for the on-call process uses empathy, then they will be able to make sure the on-call process is healthy for the platform, but mainly for the people's life, and prioritize fixes accordingly. So we make sure we learn from the failures and we don't build like a huge stack of backlog that, we just keep ignoring and call it, backlog. And then in internal tooling, as SRE, you will develop lots of tools. There are many ways to get feedback. Probably first you could start getting feedback from your developers, but if you use empathy, you're going to get feedback within the team, within the SRE team that you develop the product. And create a solution that you're happy to use with, not just from the operational reliability side, but also from the developer experience side. Something that you as a developer, you will happy to use, enjoy to use daily. I think integrating developer experience to anything you develop as an SRE is probably the best way to use this kind of empathy to your solutions that you build. And obviously, we'll speak about SLOs. We're in a SLOconf meetup. So SLOs, I'm probably pronouncing it wrong, Ketan Gangatirkan, that leads engineering and indeed gave an amazing talk about how you quantify empathy with SLOs a couple of years back. So he said how you can use this S-curve, as you call it, to define where is the sweet spot for your SLOs and how you can change this based on empathy. But this curve is just, a bunch of data, and how you use it, it really depends on you and how you think and feel about your users. And it comes down to this, like users' perception is their reality about your reliability. In order to be empathetic, this reality must be yours as well. You must work in a world where your experience is the same way as your users experience it. He also said this nice graph you can see on the right about simulating this reality and how empathy gap can be created based on a bad SLO that for your reality is okay, but maybe for your users is not okay. And as most of you know, SLOs are not static. It's something that should and change whenever a gap is detected. And this gap can be either because let's say you don't care about your users, or you don't know that you don't care about your users, or because there is actually an empathy gap. I highly recommend you to go watch this talk. I put the link there and can share the slides. Lots more information on this in this talk. It's really nice. And the last one I want to say is about the empathetic mindset. Like Beata that's here with us now, he's a colleague and a good friend of mine. He's about to publish this book about soft skills on engineering, and how highly recommend all of you go check it out and read more. So in this nice graph, it shows how empathy fuels connection with pretty much everyone that you interact as an engineer. It can be other engineers, managers, clients, stakeholders, pretty much anyone that can speak during your work. So this empathetic mindset is all we are talking about. This kind of skill or tool is not just about work. It's something more. It's something that you can train yourself to use and practice it day to day. So I like to close with this. We discussed how empathy can be used for SREs, but in general, empathy is a choice. And if you decide to go down this path and use it from your life, not just work, be prepared, because it can be a vulnerable one. I hope you enjoyed this, and be a little empathetic about me, because it was probably the first time I spoke for a non-techie subject. So thank you very much.
Thank you. If you have any question for Ioannis, feel free to ask them now. If you want to save them for later when we have the Q&A session, you can do that too. But I highly encourage, if you have questions or just something on top of your mind, ask him now while we have his attention.
Hi, can I just, this is kind of a question. Like, what do you think of this? This is my reaction. And I'm a product manager, right? So I'm mostly looking at this from product. I was kind of struck by particularly the part about training people with sympathy, because it seems that if you only approach this from empathy, you build the tools that you want, which may not be the ones that they need. So it seems there's a balance here. I mean, I love the talk. I love this. This is great. I'm going to make people around me watch it. But just that training in sympathy to also go out and maybe sort of right brain, left brain, and start from empathy, left brain, and then right brain, go and get the data on, for doing feature prioritization of what'll really meet their needs. Does that sound like a way to think about this? Part of your message, or am I off base?
Oh no, I definitely agree. Like it can't be one size only, right? It can be just sympathy or just empathy. Like it's the best combo, the best of both worlds. And if you have the people that they bring the empathy in the actually what your user needs, then where you meet in the middle ground, right? So I think it's, as you said, it's like a combo. It can be just, one way or another, because then you miss something at the end.
I can comment on that actually, because empathy is like training, like doing things like with empathy. You know, it's like the muscles. Yeah, you go to the gym and then you practice, and then you know, if you don't use your muscles, you lose them. So the same is with empathy. And I think having like a great SRE team that is empathetic in the company is a great school of empathy, because before we need something as engineers, they already know it, that we need it, that we probably will need it. And, you know, they need to be one step ahead. And you know, I had a great pleasure to work with Ioannis. And before we kind of like started having that SLO mindset, he already knew that, okay, this is what we need as a engineering team, as a product engineering team. So yeah, but how to be more empathetic, probably this is the biggest question, because people sometimes ask questions how we can learn about learn empathy, how you can practice it. So first thing is just to look inside yourself and communicate with yourself properly, the way you communicate with people. We had like an amazing connection as a human beings, and we did communicate it properly and even on very high level. That's where the empathy starts. So yeah, that's my comment on this.
I love that analogy. This is the going to the gym and working out analogy. I use it. My teams are probably sick of me talking about get in the gym, get in the gym, get in the gym. Right? Because it's the more you use it, the better trained that muscle gets. And it really is a muscle. And like for my engineering teams, what I do is I'm forced them to be empathetic with each other by blocking time on their calendars and saying, you're not allowed to do any work during this chunk of time every single week. This is time for you guys to hang out, talk about football, baseball, soccer, comic books, anything but work, and build your relationships. And it starts off, right, like with brand new teams, it feels very awkward for them, right? Of like, oh my God, my boss is telling me, don't do any work for this 1 hour a week. And he doesn't come, so he has no idea what we're doing. But it starts, right? That's the very first workout session. And as those teams build their comfort, they get to know each other. They start to, right, they open up and talk about things that you would only share with people that you're close with. You know, when you think about it, we spend as much time with our coworkers as we do with our friends and family, right? And so we don't necessarily need to be friends and family with our coworkers, but we do need to have that strong relationship, and making sure that teams get the time to spend with each other and develop those relationships, because they don't happen overnight, right? And so, it's a weird thing to schedule time to not work, but scheduling that time helps get people in a rhythm of building empathy with each other. And then, right, it's like a perpetual motion machine of like, once we build it in a team, it's very easy for us to go into another team or another part of our org and have empathy and know how it works and spread that empathy to other groups. But it really is like a muscle. The more you work it out, the stronger it gets. So I love your use of the analogy. Works, and spread that empathy to other groups. But it really is like a muscle. The more you work it out, the stronger it gets. So I love your use of the analogy.
Thank you so much both for your input and amazing analogies from both of you, Beata and Zach. And David, thank you for the question and comment to Ioannis. Any more questions to Ioannis specifically before I start? Thank you everyone for coming back from the breakout rooms. I hope everybody had a good time and got some time to socialize with each other. I'm very excited to introduce our next speaker, Yury Nino. Yury is a cloud and infrastructure engineer at Google. Yury also spoke at SLOconf last year. Very excited to have another SLOconf speaker. I promise it wasn't planned. We just happened to have two SLOconf speakers speak at this meetup. Really grateful for that, and make sure I'm just going to do a little SLOconf plugin. Make sure to register for SLOconf 2022 at sloconf.com And I really hope we get to see Yury speak at this year's SLOconf as well. However, today Yury will be talking at SLOs for the healthcare industry, a really exciting topic, and I'm excited to hear you talk, Yury. So whenever you're ready, take over.
It's okay at this moment?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much for thank you for being here, and I really appreciate your time and your disposition with this talk. The title of my talk is SLO for healthcare industry, a field that I exploring at this moment, considering some tasks in my job. So nice to meet you. I am Yury Nino. I work as cloud infrastructure engineer at Google, and also I am SRE and chaos engineering advocate in Colombia. You can find me in Twitter, LinkedIn, Medium as Yury Nino. So if you want to read about some things related to chaos engineering and site reliability engineering. So in the next minutes, I am going to talk about the most critical challenge in healthcare, the interoperability. I am going to mention how challenging is to reach reliability in an environment in which we have a lot of actors. So we are exploring what are the actors I am talking. After I am going to describe some strategies that the industry has designed to overcome those challenges. Specifically, I am going to talk about HL7 and FHIR and HIPAA compliance. Probably they are strange words or strange standards for some persons, but I would like to explain a short definition about this because it's important to understand the SLOs in the last part. So finally, the most important part, I am going to talk about SLOs in healthcare. Is critical to monitor the availability, latency, for example, and a new concept. And new concept, no, I am going to introduce a concept that in the past I didn't explore, but when we have to work with SLOs in healthcare, it's really important to monitor LROs. So I am going to talk about long running operations. That is a important concept here. So let me start with the challenge. In this example, this is an example of a common architecture in healthcare. So in this case, the objective is to ingest data from these sources in here. So ingest this data and expose them as an only source here with APG. In this case, I am using products from Google Cloud to present this example. But this is a common architecture considering any provider of cloud. So in this part, we process this data using data transformation and one analytics engine in BigQuery. And finally, we provide insights and intelligence business for customers in this solution. That is, as you see, internally, the systems can manage key healthcare data types, including HL7, FHIR, and DCOM. And if you see, internally, we have a lot of actors. And considering externally, we have a lot of another actors, it's really important to monitor, for example, latency and availability. They are two concepts or two SLAs that is really, really important here. So actually, I have drawn a single box to represent electronic health registries. That is a component in this architecture that represents the actors that provides strategies for store data of patients and medical staff. Because when we are working with healthcare architectures, it is really important to follow regulation, and in countries is critical to or it is important to interact with approved actors by government. So in this case, I am using a single box, but actually we have a lot of actors here and a different actors considering, for example, the regulation of each country. So that is an example of an architecture, a simple architecture, but so it is showing what is important to use SLOs here. So although the stack of if we are going to deep in these external actors, we have a lot of entities interacting with this with the last architecture. So I am talking about healthcare organizations, developers, business stakeholders, direct consumers, third-party consumers applications, microservices, and they have a lot of diversity. So probably the chaos could be present here. So considering the lack of standardization, because each actor speaks in different languages. So it is really important to use a way to standardize the communication between these or among these actors. So the poor data standardization can result in incomplete and inaccurate data collection, patient-machine issues that is critical. When you, for example, when you make a mistake matching information of a patient in a component with another component, we can, for example, provide medicines, an error with the medicines for a patient. So it is really, really important to reach reliability here, to reach a reliable system. So to solve this problem, the industry has created several standards. Let me talk about that. So the first standard is HL7. It is a set of international data sharing standards to enhance healthcare interoperability. In this case, the messages has a format that is separated by pipes. So we use this type of messaging to communicate these systems and to find a standard way to transmit messages. So HL7 is a clinical messaging format that supports secure exchange of documents. I am talking about the data of the patients and the data of the medical staff and the medications for patients, for example. And after that, in the history appears FHIR. FHIR is the acronym for Fast Healthcare Interoperability Resources. And in this case, we are using or we are taking advantage of a REST. So in this case, we use message in XML or, for example, in JSON. So that is more standard in the industry. But we have a challenge at this moment in that, considering that there are a lot of legacy systems. So they are using HL7. So it's really challenging to introduce this new standard in here. So that is another challenge, but in this case, I am exploring the standards available in the industry. So in this case, we have the benefit related to XML format and JSON format. So finally, HIPAA. HIPAA is related to regulation in some countries, and it is an acronym. The acronym of or the meaning of HIPAA is Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act of 1996. It is a federal law that requires the creation of national standards for protect sensitive patient health. In this case, I am talking about access control, password management, security management process, transmission. HIPAA has regulations about it. So, for example, if GCP want to reach HIPAA compliance, we have to provide strategies in order to reach these specific points. So, considering that, in GCP we have, or in another cloud provider, we have solutions that reach these standards and that provides value for actors in healthcare industry. I am talking about, again, patients, medical staff, and there are other actors, researching groups, for example. And in this case, it's really important to develop APIs for interoperability. Must be secure, reliable, reduce cost, scalable, and flexible. It is really important that considering this is a critical system. For example, in last 2 weeks, we have an outage with a system. So with a system related to healthcare. So it is really critical because in the hospital, medical staff are using the system and are providing and services related with health for patients. So it is really critical to attend this incident in a short time. So those requirements can be reached applying SRE practices and principles. It is so important to define the proper SLAs considering the dependencies and compliance challenge, as I mentioned. So in this sense, to choose the proper SLOs can be reachable. It is also important. That is an art. That is an art to design and to provide SLOs for each field in the industry. I am talking about, for example, banking, education, and in this case, healthcare. It is really important to have a context of the situation and to have the proper tools in order to define SLAs and create SLOs. So a little context of SLO. So you are expert on this topic, but I would like to talk about the concept of SLOs. A little context here. They are internal goals for measuring of service health, popularized by Google SRI book. SLOs are a key part of setting external service level agreements between service providers and their customers. So when we are working with healthcare industry, they are very, very strict and very strict with the the service level agreements, because in this case, okay, it is important to have a discount if we don't reach the SLO, but it is really critical for the health of the patients if we have in unavailability, for example, in a system. So let me share the dashboard that we are using when we are monitoring our services in Google, considering or specifically for healthcare. For example, they are services provided by Google. I am talking about healthcare API, DCOM, FHIR, HL7, because there are a lot of hospitals and organizations that are using this standard for providing communication between actors. So in this case, we have a dashboard that monitoring the SLOs for a specific SLA availability. In this case, the availability is the ratio of the number of successful responses to the number of all responses. And we want to measure what is the number of HTTP requests per minute that results in 200 or 500 responses. So that is a way to measure, or that is a way to present the information related with SLOs for this industry. So in this case, I am showing a dashboard for that. So another important SLO and related to SLA, it is latency. Latency SLA is the ratio of the number of calls below a latency threshold to the number of all calls. And in this case, we have the latency for HTTP to 200 responses. So in this case, we are monitoring the response with latency in the 50% and the 90% related to that. So finally, I would like to have more time to talk more about this topic, because it's really, really passionate and really excited when you are, for example, solving an issue in production related with that, and when you are using SLOs for providing value for customers, and when you have the possibility to use service level agreements to communicate your intention, for example, when you are signing a contract with a customer of your healthcare services in cloud. So in this case, the last topic, or the last concept I would like to introduce you is the LROs, or the meaning of the long operation running. So because it is important concept here, because certain operations on healthcare may take extended amounts of time to complete. These operations are outside the standard HTTP style of quick request and response flow. For example, copying patient data from a source URL to a bucket, or training a model to diagnose a patient from his symptoms. That is common in healthcare. We have solutions for providing intelligence, artificial intelligence or machine learning solutions in order to, for example, to have the possibility to diagnose a patient using the information provided by a model in machine learning, for example. So here we have operations that take a long time. So the latency or the availability are not proper metrics, or are not proper, not provide proper information for our customers. So this concept allow us to communicate information about systems. So for example, another example is considering information related, for example, with process data in a database, or pass or moving data from the entity regulated by government to our architecture or our system. So in this case, I would like to show you a dashboard. Dashboard is monitoring or is providing information about this concept. In this case, we have a board with 3 types of objectives. And the first one is related with result, that is based on the status code of the finish, the operation. Availability in LROs is measured using a status code returned by the operation when finished, probably after hours or minutes or hours. So similar to synchronous methods status codes, they are the status codes that we are using when we are monitoring information here. I am talking about unknown, internal, unavailable, and data loss. They are concepts that provide information for our customers related to this process that takes a long time. So the second concept here is full intervals. So I am talking about 3 concepts or 3 objectives, but I want to focus on full intervals. The other concept is short interval, but I take a long time if I explain that. So I focus at this moment in full intervals. So in this case, the objective is to measure the performance SLO for 10 minutes intervals when the LRO was expected to make a progress for the full interval. In this case, the most relevant objective is in terms of performance of SLOs. So in this case, we monitor when the process starts and the process finish, and we measure this time. And in the first case, we are using the result of the process to provide information for the customer. I am talking about if the process, for example, if we have data loss in the process, that is the result of this process. So that is an example of the dashboard that provides information related to LROs. Another concept related to SLOs, and that provides information for a long process processing data for healthcare. So that is all. I don't know if you have questions, and that is all. Thank you. Thank you very much for your time and for your listen. I don't have more more comments.
All right.